Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Cotney, and today I want to talk about, can I do better? I think this is something that we find, no matter how successful we are, we worry that we've reached some kind of peak. High rise right now that I'm doing, it's this project that is the toughest thing I think I've ever done. And there's a lot of days where I worry, can we do this? Is the stuff that I've done previous to this, is that kind of maxed out my potential? And it's weird, there's that nagging voice in my head, and I think there's a nagging voice in a lot of people's heads. Um, Basically, have I jumped the shark? Which is a really interesting expression. Jumping the shark comes from Happy Days from, I think, 1977. And it was, I think, in the 5th season, Happy Days wanted to boost their ratings. So they had Fonzie on water skis ramp jump over a shark. And a lot of fans and critics kind of declare that that moment was the moment that Happy Days just sank. In declined. It was like a death spiral. And so that phrase, jumping the shark, became this idiom that we use to describe a lot of things. Businesses falling apart, artists reaching their peak, sports teams, whatever. Have you jumped the shark? Gary Marshall, he was a creator of Happy Days, and they've asked him if he was offended by this phrase, jumping the shark. And he said, it was certainly not one of the shows I am most proud of, but I love the phrase jumping the shark and the way people use it today to signify a TV series nearing the end of its run. Gary died about a couple weeks ago at the age of 81. And it started getting me to look into this guy some more. I mean, I know his name is attached to some movies, but I read his autobiography, and it's phenomenal. The guy he was prolific at writing, producing, directing, even acting. In shows I know everyone has seen, from old stuff like The Odd Couple, Mork and Mindy, Happy Days. He's written for shows like I Love Lucy and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But he's even done really more newer stuff like Princess Diary, Valentine's Day. And everybody, I'm sure, has seen this movie where he discovers a young 20-year-old Julia Roberts for the movie he wrote and directed, Pretty Woman. And so I think Gary's perspective on jumping the shark in a phrase is an important lesson that we can take and get a lot out of. First, though, I want to talk about a guy. His name is Andrew Lane, and he's a director of the Research Center for the Sport Exercise Performance at the University of Wolverhampton. So he was really interested in that self-talk too, right? I think all of us probably have a voice in our heads that's either encouraging us or it's talking us down, right? I think a lot of us go through that voice that's like, you're not good enough, you're gonna fail this time, you're too fat, whatever. It's this nagging voice that isn't doing good for us. But we also have a voice that sometimes tells us to kind of keep going. And you want to know, how effective is that? So he got like 45,000 participants for this awesome study, which it was an online study, and they gave participants like a 6x6 grid, and they scrambled up 36 numbers, 1 through 36, and you had to hunt and pick the numbers in order, in sequence, and your goal was to kind of get faster and faster and faster. And so they did this. I think they did it about 4 times, and they would intervene after each round with something like different groups would get different psychological interventions, like motivational statements and things, to see if can anything be done to help improve these folks compete and endure and get better. And so what they found was something that's not too surprising, that after a practice round, a lot of people get better. The practice round, you need a 1 round of practice and you start getting better. That's not that surprising. But what was surprising was the thing that improved the people the most, the best thing, was self-talk. Motivational self-talk. And not just any kind of self-talk, but self-talk that was focused on process and outcome as opposed to instruction and emotion. So just saying things to yourself like, I can stay calm, or Nate, you gotta focus. Those things didn't help as much as saying something like, I can do better. I can improve my score. I can do this faster this time. So in other words, just saying, I can do better is one of the most helpful things that your brain and you can tell yourself to help you get through this task. And I think that expression is really interesting for 2 reasons. The first one is it's a look at everything. It's basically a look at everything that you've done in the past, and it says like you're not confident, or that you're not overconfident about it. That you can look back and be like, everything I've touched isn't gold. Everything I've done before All of it can be improved. There's nothing that can't be improved if I put some more time into it. And you see that with Gary, even in this expression. He said, it was certainly not one of the shows I am proud of. He didn't put the blame on Jumping the Shark or Happy Days on anyone else. He knows it could have been better. And if you read his autobiography, he talks about Happy Days kind of phoning it in there at the end. And you see with his whole life, I mean, I think he got a lot of practice because the show he wrote, the first script he wrote for Mary Tyler Moore, she threw it at his head. The first script he wrote for Lucy from I Love Lucy, she wrote, "This is shit," in capital letters on this thing. And so what did he do? He rewrote the things until they finally loved him. His first TV show, canceled. This is what he said about his first TV show. "But I knew from that experience there was no need to dwell. We just had to write and rewrite something new." He just kept rewriting. He knew he had to just keep rewriting when it wasn't good, and it was always worth improving. You know, the next TV show that he kind of got to see to production, it had the worst ratings of like 100 different TV shows. He knew he could only go up from here. At 48 years old, he finally got his chance to do directing, which is something he wanted to do now. Here's a guy late in life. I'd say a lot of people think 48 years old to kind of get a start at something you now want to make a career is pretty late in life. But you also probably now are set in a lot of your ways at 48 years old. Not Gary. One day he's struggling with doing this scene and it's not working. He doesn't feel like he's doing a good job directing. And he says, "One day I was feeling out of my league. A scene was not working. I didn't know what to do. I told the crew that I was going for a quick walk. On that walk, I realized something significant. I was not going to be able to show my cast and crew what a great director I was, because the reality was that I was not a great director. I was a director with the best intentions, but I was not even a good director yet." Gary didn't have this overinflated ego, even at 48 years old, kind of late in someone's career. He knew he could always get better. And I think he learned this even at a young age. This guy had a really interesting outlook, even at 5 years old. He wanted to be in a band with his parents, and he had a drum kit. I think his dad had a saxophone, and he had this. It was really interesting what he said. He said, "My mom played piano, and my dad played the saxophone badly. But that Christmas morning, I remember we all played together, and I thought it was the greatest day ever. We were a band, and I imagined us practicing and performing as a family for years to come." Practicing, I think, is a really interesting word choice here for a 5-year-old and for a guy. I don't even think Gary's even really realizes what he's saying here. Practicing isn't something I think a lot of people would say about forming a band, right? A lot of people, I think, go into a band and they're imagining, I'm going to do gigs, I'm going to hang out with my friends, and even maybe with his family for years to come. They wouldn't say practice, but Gary said practice. He knew even at a young age he'd be practicing and trying to improve at everything he does his whole life. The second interesting thing I think about that expression, "I can do better," is what it implies. It's a confidence that you will do better eventually. It's not saying I'll try to do better. It knows that everything that you've done in the past, you've gotten better at it. All evidence points to, if you stick with this thing, you're going to eventually do better. I can do better. I will do better. So growing up, Gary and his family, they didn't have a lot of money, and Gary was sick all the time. He had these really bad allergies, and this one day, he's laying in bed. They don't have enough money for a nanny or a babysitter, and the mom, though, has to go to work. And the mom is doing the music in a play, and Gary's laying in bed, he's sick, he's got cold compresses all over his body, and the mom wakes him up, and she's like, "You're coming with me to work." And Gary's complaining, "What am I going to do?" And she's like, "You're going to sit." And she's like, you're gonna be on stage." And he's like, I can't dance." And she's like, "Right, you're gonna sit on stage and you're gonna play the drums." And Gary's like, "But Mom, I just got a drum kit. I'm not very good." And she said, "It doesn't matter. I will teach you on stage." And so he says, so we would sit on stage and she would play the piano with one hand and pat me on the back with the other. That's how I learned to keep a steady rhythm. And his dad was the same way. So when Gary was trying to get in the Army, when he was applying and put his resume out or application for the Army, his dad forced him to put cameraman down for his previous experience. Gary wasn't a cameraman. Gary was a trained journalist and a writer. But his father knew Gary could learn to be a cameraman on the fly. And Gary's dad saw a future in TV. And so Gary knew, or Gary's dad knew, Gary could stretch himself and learn this if he wanted to. So I think it's these experiences with his parents and with his writing partner who saw all this potential in him. Even though he wasn't a phenom, they just know everyone has this potential to get better at everything that they do. There's this other really interesting point in which Gary brings this optimism about getting better to other people. He's auditioning for the Fonz for Happy Days, and he brings in Henry Winkler, and Henry Winkler doesn't look the part. Gary was originally envisioning it would be a tall, blonde guy who would be the Fonz, and Henry Winkler is short, brunette, brown eyes, but Henry Winkler says, I hired him. His audition taught me something. Casting isn't always about what you're looking for. Sometimes it's about recognizing potential and what is standing in front of you. He didn't find Fonzie, he found a guy who could become Fonzie. He knew he had the potential to become Fonzie one day if he tried and kept going. I think it's a really awesome example. I mean, like I said, I'm involved in, I think, maybe the toughest project of my entire career, and there's a lot of days where I've had nagging voice, like, can I do this? Can we fix the things that we need to fix? Is it all downhill from here? Did I reach some of the potential that I thought I had? And it's really interesting kind of paying attention to this, the research that says, like, that self-talk, I really need to kind of pay attention to it and make sure it's motivational and it's saying the right thing. And I think Gary Marshall is this wonderful inspiration of someone who was able to do that. And make a really great career doing this. And here, I'm going to leave you with this one quote at the end of Gary's autobiography, which I highly recommend reading. He says, what I haven't figured out is why some people face adversity and quit or stop trying, while others pick themselves up and go on time after time. Is it genetics, environment, encouragement? I have been whacked often by comedians, stars, censors, studio executives, and of course, the critics. The critics have whacked me for so long that now sons and daughters of critics are whacking me. However, each time I feel like I can do better. It's really coincidental that I read that autobiography and I saw him even say that about himself. I loved it, and I think you'll love it too. So I hope you get a lot out of it, and please, it's been awesome doing these videos and meeting you over YouTube and in some of the comments. So please keep them coming. Let me know what you want to talk about, and please share this. Please share the videos, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, and please subscribe if you haven't yet. And I will see you again soon. Hope you're having an awesome week.